Hello everyone, this is the third and last part of my 3-video course on the Najdorf variation in the Sicilian, and today we are going to discuss and take a look at what we could call the modern approach by top players with white against the Najdorf. And I think we are going to speak not just about the Najdorf itself, but also about a general approach which top players have adopted in the past years, perhaps in the last decade, we can say. Let's just enter our Najdorf position after move 5 by black a6. And what I'm going to say is that basically the Najdorf is considered clearly as one of the few openings. I'm speaking here at the top level and not amateur level, but at the top level the Najdorf is one of the only openings which is considered sound and playable. It might sound a little harsh, but for top players, let's say the French defense, the Scandinavian, is not considered sound because white has many ways to put a little bit of pressure on black, and clearly they don't want this. What they want with black is to be able to fix the draw by concrete means or by very sound strategy. And here you are with the Marshall in the Spanish, the Berlin defense, the Petrov, which are all very solid, but also based on concrete variations in many cases. And the Najdorf is also one of them. The Sveshnikov is another example, another variation in the Sicilian. So the Najdorf is both sound on, let's say, strategic, positional point of view, but is also concretely, let's say, bulletproof, more or less, in the sense that for black it is possible and even realistic to, let's say, as they say, close some lines. By concrete means with computers, they're basically able to neutralize 6th bishop g5, of which I spoke in the second video some days ago, saying that bishop g5 is very concrete. You need an incredible amount of knowledge, theoretical knowledge, in order to neutralize it. But basically there are lines where black, by digesting that whole work, is able to more or less neutralize white and make a draw, which at the top level is basically the goal. With white you try to push and gain a little something. With black you try to fix a draw. This used to be the approach ever since the computer era started until more or less 10 years ago, when computers became so strong that top players wouldn't be able to make a difference between them and, let's say, lower grandmasters who had the same means, materially speaking, with computers, engines and so on. So basically the preparation at the very top and a slightly lower level wasn't really different. And if top players wanted to be able to outplay lesser GMs, they would have to find new ways. And I think the very first who started hinting at this was Vladimir Kramnik, although it's a debate. I mean, Magnus Carlsen also had this approach very early on, which is to say, with white, I'm not going to pretend on an opening advantage. I just want to get a position which I like and which the opponent might not feel too comfortable. A small idea might be enough. I might use it only once, but basically I will hit and run. I will try to win this game and I'll play another idea in the next game. This is clearly what white players nowadays are trying to do in the London system, for instance, which from a theoretical point of view doesn't give white any advantage, but basically gives a sound position. You develop your pieces, you get a sound position early on, and you just play chess. And at this game, just play chess, Magnus Carlsen, Vladimir Kramnik, they're not too bad. They're actually better than most GMs. And that's why they're still very successful. But basically, I think these two figures were the ones who started this movement, this new movement. And how does it come back now to the Najdorf variation? Well, in the last decade or so, people have started finding similar ways to treat the Najdorf as white. Basically not too concrete, but mostly positionally sound, and in the same idea. Basically, you want to develop, you have a small idea, and you play chess. And of course, when you face great top players as Maxime Vachier-Lagrave or Vichy Anand or Caruana, Giri, etc., well, it might work once, not twice, but basically if it works once, it's already a great success. So what are those lines which can be regrouped in that modern approach by white? I could actually single out bishop e2, e5, and now knight f3 instead of knight b3, the classical move which has been developed through decades by top players, but suddenly they started going back to f3, which is a move which, let's say 15 years ago, I would have said, well, knight f3, it looks as if white doesn't really know his theory, does it? And actually nowadays, many top players go like this, knight f3, and the idea is just to play bishop g5, let's say after bishop e7, bishop g5, just take on f6, after bishop e6 for instance, take on f6, and just try to get control on that square with the knight. So white is going to castle, short, play queen d2, rook d1, knight d5, and just play chess. And he has something to play for. That's the semi-open d file with pressure against d6, here again, and also that square on d5. So basically some positional assets, not too much, but a little something. Black can neutralize this. I mean, it's not the end of the Najdorf, of course, but you need to understand the game. You need to be able to maneuver. And if let's say a 2700 players choose this against 2400, then he has good chances just to win by, let's say, simple positional means. I mean, it's not guaranteed, but it's likely. Whereas if he embarks in some great theoretical fight where black can be easily prepared for concretely, then he might not be able to win, might even be caught by surprise and lose. So that's basically a little bit the modern approach. This type of setup can actually be reached in other variations. For instance, h3 is a possibility, which I said is actually a rather modern move, in the sense also an aggressive move, but white can choose to treat it in a very positional way as well. After e5, going back to e2, h5, which is the move I recommended in order to try and stop g4, and now bishop g5 again, bishop e6, takes, knight d5, the queen goes back to d8, and the game goes on. Black is not worse, but white is also happy. He's going to play queen d2, the knight e2 is going to go to c3, queen d2, he can even castle long later on, and hope to gain some pressure. Same thing if we consider this very strange move h4, which has been tried also recently. What could actually be scared when seeing h4? What kind of attack is he going to launch? Well, generally h4 is not that much of an attacking move, although if black doesn't play well, it can turn into an attack. But if we go e5, knight b3, bishop e6, bishop g5, bishop e7, here again we have a very similar setup to what we have discussed already. g3 is played. Actually, white may want to go bishop h3 in order to exchange the light squared bishops. Positionally pretty sound idea as well. So here again, white just plays chess, develops his pieces soundly, and just hopes to postpone the real fight to the middle game. Finally, I'd like to single out also two other moves which are played quite often recently, and the first is a3. A very weird looking move because we don't really understand the idea of a3, but we can say that a3 is actually pretty useful if black actually goes for a Scheveningen setup, which white obviously from the white point of view, he has to take this into consideration as well. I mean, black does not have to play e5 the Najdorf way, so e6, but a3 is actually quite useful, because whenever black plays b5, then b4 is kind of neutralized, so a3 is not the most useful move on move 6, but in the long run it could be quite useful as well. And if we go e5, there the idea is to go knight f5, and this was actually tried first by Carlsen with white against Wojtaszek, by the way, another great specialist in the Najdorf, and Carlsen won a very good game. So I'm a bit skeptical about this line for black, and this is why actually I have decided here to recommend g6 for the DVD for Chess Base, which I have prepared. That was 2019, it's come out recently. And g6, actually, if you have looked at the first part of my 3-course video, I've said that g6 basically is the dragon way to develop with black, and it can be a little bit unpleasant to go for the dragon if you're afraid of a kingside attack, so that white's gonna go bishop e3, queen d2, castle long, and then h4 and attack. But look at what white has played here. He's played a3. So basically, if he wants to play that dangerous plan with bishop e3 and long castle, he needs to be wary, because b5, b4 is coming pretty soon, and black is a bit faster when launching his counterattack. So this a3 is not very useful, and perhaps even detrimental if we go for a dragon setup. And this is why I have decided to play g6, because the dragon is actually almost perfect if white doesn't have a kingside attack, a fast kingside attack. And I have chosen the same approach against a4. a4 is a more ancient move. It has been played many decades ago, and usually after e5, play can transpose to another setup with bishop c4 or bishop e2. Here again, I could have said that e5 is fine, but I decided to basically follow the same approach as against a3, which is g6, and going for some sort of dragon setup when a4 clearly is not good if white wants to castle to the long side. Well, so basically, this is how the Najdorf has been developing in the course of history ever since it started becoming fashionable in the 50s, 60s, thanks to the efforts of Bobby Fischer, but also many Soviet top players. A variation where knowledge of classics nowadays, typical plans is essential, but which also relies on concrete knowledge. And I think the Najdorf will keep on blooming at the highest level, but not only, also at amateur level, because definitely, and I really recommend you to try it out, it's a fun opening to go for. Thanks a lot for your attention.